Hey there, I'm Mr. Johnston. Today we're going to talk our way through the B flat major scale and its relative minor scale, the G minor scale. We're going to talk how to transition from one over to the other. So this might be totally new for you, or it might be review, just to help everybody. I'm gonna assume that that we're at least somewhat familiar with the B flat major scale. But we're gonna treat some of it like it's the first time, just so that we're being responsible about it. So before I do any playing, I always double check a couple of things posture wise. You may not be able to see it because of the camera. I always try and make sure that I'm sitting about in the front third of my seat. I always say, I actually did this to my junior high kids last year, that if I could walk on your row of chairs behind you, then that means that you're sitting far enough up in your seat. If I have to like step over you, then that probably means that you need to scooch up a little bit. So double check that. Second thing that I double check is my upper body. Are my shoulders in line with my hips? So am I getting that kind of straight line? It doesn't need to be exactly right, but you need to be pretty far upright. Am I staying nice and tall while I'm doing it, so that I'm keeping my airway as open as possible? Last thing, posture-wise, is just a double check of hand position. We never want our fingers crushed against the instrument. That doesn't really help us move very much. We want two open C-shape hand positions to give us the fullest range of motion that we can, make it the easiest for our hands to move. So take a second, just double check that stuff. We're going to start with our B flat major scale. We start with our third line, our middle B flat. So before I start any scale, I always take a second. If you've warmed up already, great. If not, this is a good opportunity to do a little bit of warming up. I would start on our fundamental note. For any music theory people, we're going to start on our tonic, our first note, which is B flat in this case. So I'm going to play a couple of B flats just to kind of get my face going. 2, all right. Now, if you notice, the first one was a little bit under pitch. Tone was a little fuzzy, and that's okay. The goal of doing any sort of warm-up is that we're trying to approach that best sound that we can. If you don't get it the first time, it's not the end of the world. It's just giving you information. What that told me, playing that first note, is that I needed to use a little bit faster airspeed. My air was a little slow. So once I sped it up, that pitch started to go back to the kind of the money zone that I wanted it to be in. So, okay, great. Ideally, you want to spend a little bit more time doing that. Maybe playing a couple of other pitches in there. I'm not going to do that for the sake of time right now. So, we're going to do a quick review of our fingerings. We're going to split it into 2 chunks on the B flat major scale. So I'm going to go kind of fast in between all of them because we have a lot to cover. If you need to pause and double check, or if you need to rewind the video, totally cool. So the first 5 notes of our B flat major scale, we've got B flat, 1, 2, and 1 in the right hand. Notice that since we're doing this over video, that this is mirrored. So this is my left hand up on top. It probably looks wrong from your perspective. So 1, 2, and 1 for B flat. Then to go to C, we lift up that second finger. I have my fingers so far apart just so that you can see it better. Always keep it, when we're playing, we're always keeping our fingers nice and close to the instrument. So we go to C, then D. Remember, we want that half hole. We slide that top finger down. E flat, it's the same fingering as D, but with that right pinky down. And then F. The deal with F, you've got 2 choices depending on what kind of oboe that you have. If you have one kind of like this, and I'm going to get this close enough to see it. If you have this key right here that's sort of out in the front of all these pinky keys, that is a left F, and that's the one that I will use in the scale, but many oboes don't have that, so I'm going to show you how to do it both ways. So if you're going from E flat, if we're doing the fingering E flat, you're going to cover your half hole. You're going to have 1 and 2 in the right hand, and then with your left pinky you would put down that left F key. So if I'm going E flat to F, so that's one way to do it. Up until I got this oboe, I didn't have a left F, so this is the other way that you do it. Is you can do forked F, which you may already know. You go from E flat fingering is the same. Slide that top finger up, and your second finger in your right hand, you are going to lift up, so just the first and the third are going to be covered. They call it forked F because it kind of, if you're looking at it from the same, it kind of looks like a fork. You got the prongs of the fork or your fingers. The one thing I forgot to mention with left F, but it's going to be true for both that fingering and left F, is that your thumb's going to put down the octave key, and while you're going to that fingering. So you got this is E flat to forked F. Okay, so just taking a second to talk about that. Next step, you're gonna do the first 5 notes. We're gonna do the first 5 notes on the scale together. So, just a quick review of fingerings. We go B flat to C to D to E flat to. I'll show forked F in this one. Right. So take a second, try that on your own. If you need to pause the video, go for it. You can try and play it on your own. And in whole notes, we're going to do those first 5 notes together. I lied. For the sake of time, we're going to do it half notes. Slow half notes. Here we go. 1, 2, ready? Ideally, you want to practice that on your way back down. 2, ready? Cool. So if something didn't quite go right there, that's totally fine. The thing about practice is that we're always seeing if you can identify why something didn't quite go right. Some things that could have potentially happened when we're working on our scale work as we're going up and covering more keys. We always want to make sure our fingers are covering the holes completely, except for the half hole, obviously. But if any part of it's leaking, especially down on the right hand here, then air is going to leak out. The note that we want isn't going to speak. So if something was having an issue coming out, that might be the reason why. Okay, so we've done the first 5 notes: B flat, C, D, E flat, and F. We only have 3 more notes to cover. We're going to do that as its own chunk. They are G, A, and then the high B flat. So for G, we still have our octave key down, and it's just like G. It's just like second line G that you would have learned early on. So we have 1, 2, 3 in the left hand. So just to double check. So try that on your own. And then in the next one, we're going to have A. So this is going to be just like our lower A. The only difference being we still have 1 octave key down, and then this key on the side here, this is our second octave key, and we're gonna put our finger down to the side. So I'm not pushing it down like I do a regular key. I'm using the side of my finger to kind of just push it down slightly. So take a second, just mess around with that. Because that motion is a little odd until you get used to it. So I'm going to go G to A. So try that on your own. If needed, pause the video. If that's rocking and rolling for you, the last finger that we're going to do is our high B flat. It's just like the B flat we started with. The only differences are just like A, the octave key in the back and that second octave key on the side. So other than that, your fingering is just like B flat, 1, 2, and 1. When we're up at this top register, we want nice, fast air speed. A little bit tighter of an embouchure. Pull those corners back a little bit more. That's going to get us the extra bit that we need to get that pitch to come out. Cool. So we'll do a chunk G, A, B flat. Cool. Now, this chunk we are gonna do the whole scale going up. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the fingerings and the note names. That's always a thing I recommend doing, particularly if you are in an environment where you can't play. And you can do it at different speeds too. So I'm going through. I'm thinking B flat, C, D, E flat. Thinking about nice smooth transitions between the notes F, G, A, and high B flat. You could just say B flat, you don't need to say high B flat. And then going back down, doing the same thing. B flat, A, G, F, E flat, D, C, and B flat. So I'm going to play it first. Then I'd encourage you to pause the video, take some time, and play on your own. And then I'll do it again so that we can play it together. So, in slow half notes, here's the B flat major scale going up. And same thing going down. If you need to breathe part way through, go for it, absolutely. I'd encourage you to at least try and get 5 notes before you take a breath. Cool, so take a moment on your own, practice it on your own. And once you do that, we'll be rocking and rolling. And here we go, together, up and down. We'll do a brief pause in between the up and the down. 1, 2, ready, and go. So take a second, reflect on how you did with that. What went well, what didn't go well, and if there are things that didn't go the way you wanted it to, why did they not quite go the way that you would prefer? It's important when we're practicing that it's not just like, oh man, I suck, but if there was an error, why did it happen? Cool. So I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna end this video here, make a second video, and we'll talk about how to transition from B flat to G minor. So make sure you find the other video wherever it is, and then we'll talk about how to do that. But good job so far. We'll see you in just a second. Hey there, this is Mr. Johnson. This is kind of the second part to our video where we're talking about the B flat major scale and our G minor scale. So if you were watching the last one, we went through our B flat major scale together. The relationship between a major scale and what they call its relative minor scale is if you start from your tonic and your major scale. In this case, it's called B flat major, so it would be B flat if we start there. You're going to go down what is called a minor third, and the way that you figure out a minor third is a minor third would be 3. Am I doing my math right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's going to be three half steps down. So I'm going to go down with chromatically. So my next note would be A. The second one would be A flat, and then I get to G. So if I work my way down like that, that's how I can figure out where the root note of my relative minor would be. You could say 2 steps. I could say 2 steps down, but the problem with that is that depending on what key you're talking about, that might be, for instance, I'm trying to think of an example. If I was playing in the key of D, and I needed to work down, then I'd actually be going to B minor. And if you just say 2 steps down, well, somebody might say, "Oh, I'm going to play a B flat there," and that's not the case. That's not what it is. So you need to be careful. Better way to think about it, rather than 2 steps down, is that you want to think 3 half steps down. So you can work your way down like that. Now, the good news is if you play the B flat major scale with us before, or you already know that, pretty much know everything you need to know to play G minor. It's the same key, it's the same flats as B flat major. You're just starting from a different note. So instead of starting from B flat, we're going to start our new tonic, our new root note. There's 2 different ways to say the exact same thing, is going to be G. So, as always, I'm going to start by playing a couple of the tonic note just to get my sound going. Double check your posture. Cool. If you need time to do that, feel free to pause the video. Cool. So we're going to move through this kind of quickly, just because the fingerings are so similar to what they were for B flat major. But we are going to split it up into 2 chunks again. So we're going to do the first 5 notes of our G minor scale, which is G, A, B flat, C, and D. So just a quick review of the fingerings for that. We're going to start on our G. 1, 2, 3. Remember, the video's mirrored, so this is my left hand. G. Then we go A flat. And then we go B flat. You add that first finger in the bottom hand. Then we go C. And then we go D. Now, the reason, even if we know these fingerings separately, music is really just patterns. So you're noticing me just kind of fingering through those 5 notes right now. These patterns make up music, and so I always talk about scales like they're basically like cheat codes to playing well. If you get used to the patterns that happen with these, then you pretty much win. You know, you get good at your scales, and you can play pretty much any kind of thing that you need to. There are a ton of different scales, which is why we have to learn a bunch of different ones. But that's the reason why it's important to work on them. So Slow half notes. We're going to play the first 5 notes of our G minor scale. I'm going to go up, brief pause, come back down. And 2, running. And back down. And double check if there was anything that went wonky for you in that that you can figure out what the issue was. So we're gonna do the same thing one more time. I'm gonna go just a hair faster. And 2, ready. Cool. Now, if you're rocking and rolling with that, awesome. Then let's keep going. If not, feel free to go back and review. Spend a little bit more time on that. We have 3 more notes to work on, and luckily we've worked on them already. In the B flat major scale, we've got E flat, and we've got F. And again, like I talked about in the last video, if you have a left F, I would recommend using that one. If not, forked F works just fine. So we go E flat to F, and then that upper G with the octave key, just to make we're always starting and ending on our same note. So just listen real quick. And try that with me real quick. 2, ready. And back down, those 3 notes, ready, and get some hot cross buns in there. Awesome. All right, so we get those pieces put together. Now we can do the whole thing. Now I would encourage you real quick to do the same thing as before. We kind of think through our fingerings. So I'm going to note name through this really quick. I like note naming for 2 reasons. One, and note naming out loud. One, there's something about vocally doing something and physically doing something at the same time that hardwires it in your brain a little bit better. And 2, if you're at home and you can't play, this is another way to practice things. So we're just going to do it just so that we're learning the skill. So we're doing the skill going up and down, going G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, and back down, G, F, E flat, D, C, B flat, A, G. And so you could do that. You could do it at different speeds. You can do it with a metronome. The only reason I'm not playing a metronome over this is because I'm using my phone to record, but I would totally recommend doing this with a metronome. We can talk about some places to get one in a little bit. So once you've done that, I'm going to play a G real quick just to get the face moving. Great. And so we're going to do going up, brief pause, going down. And here we go. 2, right? So, double check with yourself real quick. See what went well, see what didn't go so hot. Again, the point of practicing is not just to be like, oh man, that was not good, that was bad. But if something was an error, why did it happen? What can I do this next time to see what I can do to make that error not happen again? So we're gonna do it one more time. 2, right. Cool. So I sort of talked about this a little bit before, but there's a ton of reasons why scales are important. One, like I said before, I truly I think they're like cheat codes to playing music really well. So many of the patterns, especially earlier music, so many of the patterns that we're talking about are different iterations of scales. Whether they go every note, or whether they do arpeggios, which is when they skip certain notes and have the root, third, fifth, and top note. Or if they're doing a scale in thirds where they're skipping around a little bit. That so many of the things that we play are just different iterations of those things. So it's really important that we get used to those skills. Also, that it helps us get an idea in our minds about what those sort of patterns sound like. So it's not even just so much just about getting it under our hands, but getting it in our ear as well. But also, it's good to train the fingers at differing speeds. If you're looking for ways to how do I move my fingers faster? How can I play faster? When you're warming up, the scales are an easy way to do that. Those are the patterns that you want to work on that stuff with. So these skills sort of go hand in hand, in order to get what we say our technical facility a little bit stronger. Some things I would also recommend while you're practicing are do it slow. This was kind of a fast version of what we're talking about, but I would definitely recommend doing a lot of this stuff slowly, just so that you're internalizing it a little bit better and you can think your way through rather than just practicing maybe not the best habits and doing it a bunch of times really quickly. But also using a metronome to keep us honest about the time that we're playing with. I think if you go on the Apple Store, or if you go on the Android store, if you're using Android, or if you go on the computer, just want to play it through a speaker, if you just type the word metronome, METRONOME, you can find tons of free ones you don't have to pay for. And I think that is one thing that when I was a younger player that I didn't do nearly as much as I should have, playing with an honest pulse. And I think that'll help you develop a lot of those skills quicker, just because you're keeping consistent time. So I hope something in either one of these videos is helpful. If nothing else, skills are really important. Please continue to work on them, especially in this time where we're here by ourselves or here with our families. I think it's a really good use of the time. So I hope you're staying safe. Keep on doing this. We're going to keep on doing it too. And I hope you have a good day.